Late 2009. Microsoft was preparing to release an operating system that was never supposed to exist. There are Windows versions you've heard of. Windows XP, Windows Vista, Windows 7. And then there was one that was quietly raised. The lost build didn't have a release number. In the interior directories of the pre-made builds, it was listed on as Windows Codename, New Millennium. It was scheduled for Q4 2009 launch, built on an experimental, heavily modded core that blended the glassy aesthetics of Windows 7 with a hyper-threaded web architecture. New Millennium was supposed to revolutionize how the OS handled Earl cloud integration and heavy multi-tab browsing, and can be compatible with Intel Atom, but even though it's the slowest processor, instead, it was scrubbed from company servers in 48 hours. The guy that created the OS but removed it was 22-year-old James Tyson. He was a mid-level systems QA lead on the project. Along with a small internal team, James was tasked with stress testing the OS's proprietary browser engine, ETH, which allowed native OS-level tab management. As the launch deadline loomed in late autumn 2009, the team was pulling 80-hour work weeks. Exhausted, running on cold cough, and rushing to clear the release candidate build, they overlooked a deep kernel visual rendering bug tied to memory buffer overflows. It only triggered under a very specific condition, opening exact 20 tabs simultaneously while rendering high-contrast PNG assets. The bug didn't crash the system. It bypassed the GPU's brightness and color indexing percentile, forcing the screen backlight to overvolt while locking the system's draw calls into a precise, strobing loop. When the 20th tab opened, the UI wouldn't crash to blue. The desktop would snap to pure, void black. In the exact center of the screen, a high-density, inverted image would appear, a hyper-detailed, bloodshot human eye surrounded by a jagged, burning white halo. An eclipse of an eye. The image wasn't just static. The stroke pattern strobed at an unwhole frequency designed by the rendering error to hit the human fovea with maximum intensity. When James tested the build in the dark QA lab late that night, he opened his 20th research tab. The monitor flashed with the blinding, high-frequency white-hot glare of an eclipsy image. The sheer intensity hit his retinas like a physical blow. James screamed, falling backward out of his chair, clutching his face. For 2 full minutes, his vision was completely wiped out, replaced by a searing, painful green and magenta burn mark of the eye floating in total darkness. When his sight gradually bled back in, his teammates were already surrounding him. 2 other testers in the room, who had looked over at his screen, were doubled over, disoriented and tearing up, suffering from temporary photo flash blindness and severe migraines. The realization hit the team immediately. This wasn't a minor patch job. The bug existed at the absolute lowest layer of the OS display architecture. Pushing a fix meant completely rewriting the display manager from scratch, missing the release window entirely, and risking permanent optical damage to millions of users if anyone pushed the browser to 20 tabs. By 6:00 a.m. the next morning, the project was killed. Senior management ordered every physical drive containing Windows Codename, New Millennium zeroed and physically demagnetized. James Tyson was quietly transitioned off the team, and the entire project was wiped from internal roadmaps. Microsoft shifted all its desktop focus toward polishing Windows 7, while the experimental visual interface ideas were locked away in a vault. Years later, when the company needed a drastic visual shift to compete in the new decade, they didn't revisit New Millennium. They built a completely new, tiled architecture from scratch to replace the void left by the cancelled project, releasing it to the public as Windows 8. To this day, if you ask former 2009 Red Badge employees about New Millennium, they'll tell you it never existed. But somewhere on the Internet Archive, ISO files of them are still here, and the overridden backup tape in Redmond, the raw image of the eye is still sitting at the bottom of dead buffer, waiting for tab number 20.